Hello and welcome to IGPP Expert Talks. I'm Heena Goswami, Editorial Consultant with IGPP, Institute for Governance, Policies and Politics, New Delhi. Today, to discuss the state of politics in India, we have with us Dr. Manindra Nath Thakur. Dr. Manindra Nath Thakur is an Associate Professor at the Center for Political Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. His research academic interest lies in social science research methods, Marxist theory, Indian politics, religion and politics, and new religious movements. Dr. Thakur has also recently authored a bestseller book, Gyan Ki Rajniti, and has been at the forefront of the creative theory movement. Welcome to IGPP Expert Talks.
Thank you, Heena.
So I'll dive right into the question to talk about the state of democracy in India today. Different international organizations and democratic indexes released by them, be it Electoral Democracy Index or Liberal Democracy Index released by VDEM Institute, they have all downgraded India's democracy. Do you feel India's democracy is really under threat, or it's just another day at the school of democracy?
See, I have a feeling Heena, that Indian democracy has very strong social base. So we need not to worry that much as the international organizations are telling us. But having said that, I would suggest that at the moment we are in crisis. There is no doubt about it. And we are, it all depends how do we look at democracy. If you think democracy means only elections in 5 years, then we are doing perfectly well. We are having elections all the time, in time, and well managed elections. But if you think of democracy at a social level, if you think of democracy as our forefathers or the founding fathers of Constitution thought of, then it was economic democracy, social democracy, democracy between communities. So it was widespread thing. Democracy does not mean merely elections in that case. Like Ambedkar says that democracy is something which is at a social level. If you don't have democracy at a social level, then your political democracy will be compromised. I think Constitution very clearly said that there should not be any monopoly in Indian economy. There should not be too big an industrialist or capitalist class. But as you can see, that the wealth is being accumulated in the hands of some people. Whether our GDP is high or not, that is not a great indicator of democracy. I think the great indicator of democracy would be whether the wealth is widely spread or not. So I think the inequality index in India is growing. And large number of people are moving from, say, organized sector to unorganized sector. And there is a stress that is being created. The stress which is being created in the market, in their everyday, that is also reflected in their everyday life. And that is also reflected in inter-community relationship. I'm not talking only about two religious communities relationship. All kinds of communities and small communities, big communities, you will see that there's an anxiety. And that anxiety is not very good for a smooth functioning of a democracy. So I'm sure our democracy has very strong social base, but at the same time, I think we are passing through a crisis that needs to be addressed. Right?
So a lot of political commentators blame this democratic crisis upon BJP. Do you think the BJP's rise to power is a byproduct of India's vibrant democracy, or is it India's backslide into majoritarian authoritarianism?
See, I have an argument that generally speaking, modern state all over the world is moving from a republican democracy to authoritarian regimes. I call it techno-authoritarian regimes. The regimes being supported by a lot of technology and simultaneously very authoritarian. Partly the reason is that capitalism itself is getting into crisis everywhere. And this time, the crisis of capitalism is very deep. Why I'm saying it is deep? it is not an economic crisis merely. In fact, capital is doing very well. But there's a deep philosophical crisis. What is a philosophical crisis? If you look at the evolution of capitalism, you will find the initial argument for capitalism, Adam Smith and Locke and all, if you see, for them, the initial advantage of capitalism was that it was based on the idea of common good, that it will produce more common good. That common good was compromised during welfarism. For the first time, there was an economic crisis, 1929, and that time they said that, well, we have to get into welfarism, otherwise this common good will suffer. That was very nice, that things changed also. But then in 70s, the common good was no more material good. The common good became freedom. So, Hayek wrote a book called Capitalism and Freedom, Road to Serfdom. So, a lot of arguments came where said the common good is not merely material good, but freedom is more important. So, equality versus freedom debate became quite widely circulated. But then after 2008 crisis, there is no legitimizing philosophy that has emerged. In fact, if you look at the 2008 crisis carefully and the reports that have come up, most of the reports are saying that the crisis caused due to greed. Now, greed is organizing principle of capitalism. Before Adam Smith wrote the book, there was a long poem published which justified greed for the first time. So greed is good. So capitalism based its idea that capitalism will, on this idea that if people are greedy, they can produce more. Now they are saying greed is bad. So there is a new book by somebody called Greed is Dead. But I don't think greed is dead. Greed has gone into the common sense now. And that is a big problem. Because if greed is there and deeply, then society will always be in crisis. And that crisis will produce authoritarian regimes. So BJP, as you know, BJP came to power through elections. And if you remember 2014 election, we were in deep crisis. Corruption was a major issue. Declining capitalism was another major issue. And that's how people trusted this powerful party or strong party, strong leadership. That was the mission development and democracy. These were the ideas. But I think gradually what the BJP is doing or the regime is doing is not responding to that crisis, or the response is a very different response. Let me explain this in a minute. I always wonder why capital supported BJP. If you remember, just before election, Rahul Gandhi was speaking in CII conference, and he said, "Don't think that a chief minister will come on horse and solve all your problems." Why was he saying that? Because there was a kind of expectation that some other will come and solve the problem, and they thought, the capital thought, that BJP has two important aspects. One is identity politics, other is a strong party organization. So it can take care of the crisis that will be produced due to giving advantage to capital. Congress had a problem. Congress did not have identity politics. Rather, Congress's base was created through welfare mechanism, if you remember Manrega. And capital was very much against welfarism. So they preferred BJP. So capital is happy with BJP. As long as capital is happy with BJP, and capital is a big player in Indian democracy right now. 2014 election was a capital intensive election. The amount of money spent in 2000 election was just amazing. So I think BJP's rise to power is due to the crisis that we faced and the imagination of the capital that this kind of governance will be helping them out. But remaining in power is kind of reproducing the similar situation. Therefore, I don't think there is one-way relationship. There is a kind of two-way relationship. And as long as a similar situation is produced, we will remain in crisis. And therefore, it might sustain for some more time. Capital is still with them. We are hoping now that there will be some conflict among the capitalists, which is emerging now. And that might give some other indication for change of the regime or something. Otherwise, this is going to continue.
I have two related questions. So, it is well known that one of the major pillars of BJP's politics has been identity politics. And while India is not a country which has a clean record in terms of conflict between religious communities, but there has been certainly an increasing, there have been increasing instances of violence against minority communities. So I have two questions. Whether as a society we are minority hating, or another question is, or is it a new trend? And the next question is, the conflicts we see today, and not simply the conflicts between, let's say, religious communities, but the social divides and ideological divides. You're a Marxist scholars. Can these divides and conflicts be interpreted in terms of class struggle?
See, it cannot be interpreted in terms of class struggle in a simplistic way. There's an involvement of the class. As I said, that when the state is not working for people, or economy is doing well, but people are not. In that situation, there is an anxiety among the people. How do you take care of the anxiety? What do you do with the anxiety? But this anxiety might lead to revolt. This anxiety might lead to major revolutionary politics. One way to resolve this anxiety is to shift the anxiety to somewhere else. I think that is what right now is happening. If you look at the newspaper clippings, you will find that the day there is a major economic decision taken by the government, same day there will be some kind of conflict highlighted on the front page. So the moment there is something which gives a crisis, the crisis management is done through this identity politics. So it is being a tool, and this is not a new thing in political theory. Great old Machiavelli said that religion can be used for manipulating people's consciousness. That is what is happening. So the anxiety is being transferred. I don't think as a society we are minority hating society. I think we have history of inter-community relationships which have been very bloody. There is no history of inter-community relationship anywhere in the world which has been peaceful actually. There is hardly any such. But it is not only bloody also. There are also instances of very good relationship and very bad relationship. And simultaneously, I'll give you an example of a student who has done work on Gujarat. After the Gujarat riot, there were a lot of reconciliation among the communities at the popular level. After the Bhagalpur riot, there was a mosque which was destroyed by the rioters, and then they collected money to rebuild the mosque. Same people. So I think as a society, over the centuries, we have been able to adjust with many communities. And it's not a minority hating society. But if the discourse is focused on the minority majority politics all the time, then there is a problem, then there is anxiety. And added with that is a social and political anxiety or economic anxiety. So the regime very interestingly shifts our anxiety towards this minority hating thing. And then the media is always there. If you look at the media, I don't know how does it happen, but they will have every evening only on these issues. And that also symbolically a Muslim, symbolically a Hindu. It's not very refined understanding of the situation for which they are being called. In fact, many of my Muslim friends informed me that they were told that we are interested in inviting you, but you will have to dress yourself differently. This is an amazing situation. So I think media is playing very important role in this democracy, which is projecting as if we have become minority hating community. But if you look at the grassroots level, even today, I think we have been able to live together broadly peacefully. One or two instances here and there where people have killed somebody. It's such a big country, not very fortunate thing, very unfortunate thing, but looking at the kind of stress being created, this is not a big thing. Even after that, I don't think there's any major clash between the communities. Anxieties are there, both the sides. And this anxiety is not being resolved. I think Gandhi's politics was to resolve this anxiety. Both the communities may resolve and sit together and dialogue. That is not being done anymore. So you can see political parties like BJP gives no ticket to a Muslim candidate, which is amazing. I was told that in principle they don't give any ticket to a Muslim candidate. Some journalists told me that they had a chance to talk to top leaders and they said, no, we don't want to. So which is very amazing, which means that this image is being created. And this creation of the image is good for the rise of capital, accumulation of wealth in the hands of capital. I think this is how the politics should be understood.
To shift away from BJP and to talk of other political alternatives, the left parties today are part of ruling alliance in 3 states, Kerala, Bihar and Tamil Nadu. But they are minor players in the latter 2 and they only have 5 representatives in the Lok Sabha. We talk of capital and identity politics and left parties have, questioned that narrative. But it is no secret that left parties do not set the political discourse as they once did. How, as a Marxist scholar, how do you feel about the vanishing of left from the country's political stage?
See, I think Marxism itself was undergoing a crisis, still undergoing a crisis. What we call Marxism today, or the Marxism of the political parties in India, that is basically Soviet Marxism. Now, Soviet Marxism is not Marxism actually. There are a lot of issues there. Since my work is on religion and Marxism, I can give you in detail that how Soviet Marxism adopted atheism or how it became positivist Marxism. And the experience of Soviet Union, I think, is very important, but not something to be replicated in other countries, particularly a country like India, where large number of major religions are born. It means that this is a different kind of psyche, different kind of social organization. And in that country, you do not have a very sound theory of religion. You are working on a theory of religion which was developed not by Marx but by Soviet Union. Let me give you an example. Like the most often quoted statement from Marx that everybody knows is, religion is the opium of the masses. Now, this statement itself is a part of a paragraph which says that religion is the soul of soulless society, heart of the heartless world. And if you look at the writings of Marx on religion, Marx and Engels both, you will find that they have appreciated religion on many occasions, which means there is a more complex theory of religion that Marx has, which should be understood by people and Marxist scholars and political parties working in India. So look at, for instance, great people like Tagore, Ambedkar and Gandhi. None of them opposed religion, knowing fully well that religion has a lot of contradictions, it has become exploitative, Hinduism has promoted caste relationship, Hindu-Muslim stress is there, but none of them said religions must be banned, including Ambedkar. The first sentence is, when he talks about religion, he says that religion is necessary for society. He gives a theory. Well, all 3 of them give very interesting theory that can be articulated in Ambedkar's language. Religion of principle is actually what is the core religion, and religion of rules is mediated by power. So it has evolved like that. That has to be transformed. A new movement has to be there to reform religions. But abandoning religion, not talking about religion, is something that has resulted in this situation that we don't know what to do. Including the left liberals, those who have been talking about secularism. For them, secularism only means equidistance from religious communities. That is not good enough for our country. I think secularism should mean secularizing the religion also, in the sense that having a rational reading of religion, something that Gandhi was talking in Hind Swaraj. He says that I'm very much keen for religious education. Then the question was, who will educate, who will teach religion? He said, not the Pandits or Maulvis. Englishmen should teach religion so that it can bring reason within religion. So I think one of the reasons that Marxism is facing a problem is its inability to theorize religion, nationalism, emotion, feeling. These things are actually ethics. These things are missing in that, which has become core idea of politics in last few decades. For instance, the way the emotions are being played. We don't know how to raise emotions of people, even for right kind of thing. They are raising it for wrong kind of thing, but Marxists don't know how to raise emotion. They would treat emotion as something negative. So I think these are the issues that Marxist political parties will have to see. I have great hopes even today from Kerala Communist Party. I have 2, 3 students working on Kerala politics, and they're doing their PhDs, and most of them are informing me that Kerala Communist Party is doing a lot of experiments on the issue of caste, on the issue of religion, in the economy also, doing many experiments. I think Bengal Communist Party did something in the beginning, but then got exhausted. Uh, Bihar and Tamil Nadu, these are minor players. Bihar Communist parties are in power at the moment, not by itself, but through RJD. Now, RJD may throw them out anytime because RJD doesn't have any commitment to communism or their principles. RJD has a commitment to social justice, however compromised it could be, but it has certain commitment. So Bihar and Tamil Nadu do not give me enough confidence. But Bengal is something to be, Kerala is something to be watched carefully. And if Marxist scholars start theorizing what is being done in Kerala and how that is being influential, how they are maintaining this thing, that would be interesting. On religion, I would like to just say one more thing. We must take cognizance of what is called liberation theology, the experiments in Nicaragua, how Christianity was reformed and it became quite a revolutionary organization, and then they participated in the movement. Something that happened in Indian national movement also. If you look at Gandhi, Tagore, and Ambedkar, they were talking about that only, that if you, like Gandhi's statement, I remember, he says that if religion is based on love, then it can be transformative. So transformative religion is very important, and I call it Muktikami Dharma. So religion which is liberative, which can liberate people, that we have to think of. The Marxist scholars, I think, will have to take this question very seriously. Similarly, Marxist scholars should also take Indian intellectual tradition very seriously. The reason behind is very simple. I don't think modernity erased the Indian intellectual tradition from the collective consciousness of people. It's still part of their consciousness. Their everyday life is guided by the intellectual tradition. Now, Marxists do not even take that seriously. As a consequence, the negotiation never begins. They negotiate only on the economic grounds, but that is very limited. You really have to understand how do people think, and then you have to find out the space through which you can enter in their consciousness. And that you cannot do unless you understand their collective consciousness. That is another problem I think Marxism is facing in India. But I do not see this is coming from political parties, and don't expect this to come from political parties too. I think independent Marxist scholars will have to take this project very seriously and work on it.
To talk of left and communism, how is Jane doing? Is it dead or does it continue to survive and thrive as a platform for debate and dissent?
I think JNU has a larger role to What gives me big hope is despite all the crises JNU went through, they are still adhering to that larger image, which is quite interesting. And recently, after COVID, students organized the conference. In fact, we don't have money to organize seminars. Departments don't have money to organize seminars. The students mobilize resources and they are organizing seminars now. So they organized something called Indian Political Theory, a conference on Indian political theory. And a lot of people came. And around 500 to 600 students attended the conference. With a lot of questions. That my first statement there was that thanks God JNU has survived. So I think JNU is down but not out. The culture of debate is still there inside the classroom, outside the classroom. Fortunately, you have generations of teachers who have been trained in that and they want to train new generation in that. So that culture still survives. Despite all this happening in JNU, and what is happening today is much more dangerous. Like, I do not think appointments in academics in India at the moment is a neutral kind of thing. It is guided appointment, I call it. That is a problem for any institution. If you are not allowing the best of the teachers to come, then there will be a problem. That is possible. Second thing, the resource crunch. The public universities all over the country have already declined most. You go to Bihar, you go to Madhya Pradesh, you go to Rajasthan, wherever you go, you will find that major public universities are declining. Delhi University and JNU, these were two holding the ground for a long time. Now they are not declining for their own reasons. They are declining for the kind of politics being done with them. Like in Delhi University, if you look at for several decades, at least one decade, flower appointments are not done. Ad hoc teachers are taken. How can somebody who is already 25, 26 put oneself into teaching fully without having a secure job? Thousands of students are teaching there without any hope of getting permanent job. How can the university survive like that? Similarly, in JNU, I think library, if you look at the library, resources for libraries declining very fast. We do not have enough financial resources to maintain the buildings. And a new method of funding that has been adopted by the government, that is taking loan from some organization being created, where they have put some money and every university has to take a loan and then refund the loan. I don't know how shall we survive. Public education in India has to be free. That creates the base for democracy. I think JNU or DU's role in maintaining Indian democracy has been amazing. And that is necessary to be done. That is a problem. I think if it continues for a decade, then probably JNU will be in deeper crisis than it has faced. At the moment, I think it has not only survived, it is thriving. So they are working day and night without much resources. So I think JNU is a model of education that India should adopt for different parts of the country.
True. You're a political theorist, and I want to ask you this: that are there emerging political theories that take into account the rise of social media and the power that it puts in the hands of common people? Even with student protests, we now see that how like a single tweet, how a single social media post can go viral and mobilize students, people. Are there theories that take into account this new strength that people have now?
See, I'm not an expert on this, but I can tell you that a lot of students are working on this now, and there are conferences, there are books, there are serious research going on the power of social media activities. Political theory is taking social media very seriously and role of social media in democracy quite seriously. The debate started in 2014, I guess, when Congress Party was kind of legitimately suggesting that we should get into social media. And from there to now, you can see that every party has its social media team. In fact, BJP has a huge social media team, and you can see the impact of that. The kind of image of Rahul Gandhi that has been created by the social media team. One can understand how it is being done. So, students of politics, political theory, and students of Indian politics, I don't think they are not aware of it. They are trying to theorize this technology, society, interface, and also they experienced the power of technology of the social media during the crisis that JNU went through. I think I could see thousands of students sitting in public spaces using JNU Wi-Fi to spread their arguments all over. And that is what created a kind of informed public opinion among the elites in India. I'm not sure if it reached to masses, because for masses, we need to have different kind of language, which maybe they did not have at the time. But definitely, the decision makers all over the world actually got involved in that discussion and debate. And so, the power of social media, I think, people are theorizing. But political theory in India has been able to take audience of many more things, which you must talk about. Like, for instance, after a long time, there are scholars in India and abroad. They are thinking that our social sciences, religion, and physical activity have been mostly Eurocentric. And there is a need of Indian political theory. And there is a possibility of Indian political theory. This is happening for the first time. Number of books are coming on this theme. Number of conferences are being organized on this theme. Now there are different kinds of efforts. One done by right-wing people, those who are suggesting that indigenous social science is very important. Then other group is left-wing people. They are also taking it seriously and suggesting that indigenous does not mean that you do not engage with other traditions, but have a dialogue with them. And I have articulated something called democratic dialogue among knowledge traditions. We are running a group called Creative Theory Group, where people from different disciplines have joined, young students, senior professors, many people who have been talking about various kinds of things and rethinking about it. For instance, the series that we have started called Themes in Creative Theory, the first book that has been published recently is on CSR, corporate social responsibility, and how it is being used, how capital is using corporate social responsibility not for social responsibility, but for the benefit of the industry. How there is a kind of relationship between corporate and political politics or political leadership using this kind of resources, which was supposed to be for the welfare of people. So similarly, there is another book coming out called Alternative Sexuality, talking about how these are the research projects that young students have been taking up. So I think there is a movement in political theory which is being aware of things like social media, things like alternative sexuality, CSR, and so many other things. So that is giving a lot of hope that young generation has not given up, and is also not ready to just copy the Western theory in India, but to use our own experiences for creating a larger theory, not by rejecting other theories, but by negotiating with other theories. And this is what is happening every.
You're a political theorist, and I want to ask you this, that are there emerging political theories that take into account the rise of social media and the power that it puts in the hands of common people? Even with student protest, we now see that how like a single tweet, how a single social media post can go viral and mobilize students, people. Are there theories that take into account this new strength that people have now?
See, I'm not an expert on this, but I can tell you that a lot of students are working on this now, and there are conferences, there are books, there are serious research going on the power of social media in the university. Political theory is taking social media very seriously and role of social media in democracy quite seriously. The debate started in 2014, I guess, when um, Congress party was kind of hesitantly suggesting that we should get into social media. And from there to now, you can see that every party has its social media team. In fact, BJP has a huge social media team, and we can see the impact of them. The kind of image of Rahul Gandhi that has been created by the social media team, one can understand how it is being done. So, students of political theory and students of Indian politics, I don't think they are not aware of it. They are trying to theorize this technology society interface, and also they experienced the power of technology or this social media during the crisis that JNU went through. I think I could see thousands of students sitting in public spaces using JNU Wi-Fi to spread their arguments all over. And that is what created a kind of informed public opinion among the elites in India. I'm not sure if it reached to masses, because for masses you need to have different kind of language, which maybe JNU did not have at the time. But definitely the decision makers all over the world actually got involved in that discussion and debate. And so the power of social media, I think people are theorizing. But political theory in India has been able to take cognizance of many more things which you must talk about. Like, for instance, after a long time, there are scholars in India and abroad. They are thinking that our social sciences in general and political theory in particular has been mostly Eurocentric. And there is a need of Indian political theory. And there is a possibility of Indian political theory. This is happening for the first time. Number of books are coming on this theme. Number of conferences are being organized on this theme. Now there are different kinds of efforts. One done by right-wing people, those who are suggesting that indigenous social science is very important. Then the other group is the left-wing people. They are also taking it seriously and suggesting that indigenous does not mean that you do not engage with other knowledge traditions, but have a dialogue with them. I mean, I have articulated something called democratic dialogue among knowledge traditions. We are running a group called Creative Theory Group, where people from different disciplines have joined, young students, senior professors, many people who have been talking about various kinds of things and rethinking about things. For instance, the series that we have started called Themes in Creative Theory, the first book that has been published recently is on CSR, corporate social responsibility, and how it is being used, how capital is using corporate social responsibility not for social responsibility but for the benefit of the industries, and how there is a kind of relationship between corporate and politics or political leadership using this kind of resources, which was supposed to be for the welfare of people. So similarly, there is another book coming out called Alternative Sexuality, talking about how these are the research projects that young students have been taking up. So I think there is a movement in political theory which is being aware of things like social media, things like alternative sexuality, CSR, and so many other things. So that is giving a lot of hope that young generation has not given up and is also not ready to just copy the Western theory in India, but to use our own experiences for creating a larger theory, not by rejecting other theories, but by negotiating with other theories. I think this is what is happening in every domain.
You have authored a bestseller book, Gyan Ki Rajniti. Tell us about it. And for today's youth, suggest three books that, away from the glare of social media and WhatsApp, will help put India's current politics in perspective.
See, Gyan Ki Rajniti is, I have dedicated the book to my students and my teachers. I think we have been talking about politics of knowledge since last many decades. I have talked about how do we, in social sciences, how do we rethink about our relation with Indian intellectual traditions. Our social sciences at the moment are based on Western philosophies. Unless we really see if there are resources we have, India is a very old society and we have huge tradition of knowledge. So unless we really appropriate things from there for understanding our society, we will not be able to engage with people. That's my assumption. And therefore, I have tried to use certain resources from Indian intellectual tradition to understand Indian politics. And I'm saying that how this kind of knowledge system has not got space in the mainstream. I'm not the first one to argue about it. There were efforts done earlier. Two I would mention. One called Sociology, Lucknow School of Sociology, A.K. Sharan and all. They started this kind of project but failed because mainstream rejected that. Similarly, there is a philosophy movement by name of Jaipur philosophy. They were trying to do this, but mainstream did not take cognizance of that. So this is a politics of knowledge, that you have created a university which is mainly based on the colonial model, and you are actually copying that from there. So it doesn't give us full understanding of our own society. We really have to rethink about it and get into it. So that's a basic theme. So there are chapters on democracy, as I made an argument that democracy has to be re-theorized. Indicators have to be expanded. Social democracy and economic democracy have to be embedded in the theory of democracy, not only the electoral politics and all. Majoritarianism has to be understood differently, the reason for this and how anxieties are there, how to deal with the anxieties. Then I have talked about, I think the most liked chapter of the book is called Human Nature. One of the problems with the Western theory of human nature is that most of the philosophers, they take up one aspect of human being, and on the basis of that, they develop the entire theory. So Hobbes will say human beings are bad, and then develop a theory of state, or Locke will say human beings are good, and then develop a theory of state. I think Indian knowledge tradition offers you a very comprehensive theory of human nature, which Gandhi used for himself, which has 10 elements. One is 4 purushas and 6 vikars. So I've tried to expand the meaning of that, unfold the meaning of that, to develop a realist understanding of human nature and talk about the possibilities, not something fixed, but dynamic human nature. So it is dynamic according to time and space and other things. So that is one of the things that creates the basis for creating a new social science, which I call a transformative social science. So there is a administrative social science and there's a transformative social science. I think what we are doing in the universities, they are administrative social sciences. We really need to do transformative social science with the people. See, for instance, there was a tradition in India that you have 3 kinds of texts. One is when the expert is talking to expert of the same field. When an expert of one field is talking to the expert of another field. And when an expert is talking to common people. I think the third thing is just missing in our society. So using people's language, so I wrote it in Hindi, and a lot of my students are also writing in Hindi. And using language which could be understood by common people, those who want to inform themselves about what is happening. I think another important chapter I consider important is about religion, where I have demonstrated that how during the freedom struggle, there was a rise of new understanding of religion, which I call Muktikami religion. I've analyzed some novels through which I've shown the debate that was happening. Similarly, there is an autobiography by a professor from JNU, Professor Tulsi Ram. I've analyzed that to suggest that this could be another mode of writing social sciences, and I have revisited the debates in social science through that text. These are the contents of the book. 3 books to read. I think there are many of them, but I suggest that one of the books one should read is by Hilal Ahmed, Siyasi Muslims, published by Penguin. That's a very interesting book which talks about transformative religion. He has another book in Hindi called Allah Ke Naam Ki Siyasat, where this new theory of religion has really been articulated fairly well. Then we should also read on ethics. Rajiv Bhargava has a recent book on ethics. Neera Chandok has books on ethics, on violence and all. So one can also read things like very small introduction to political theory by Manindra Mohanty, which gives you a map of what is going on in India and how we can think afresh. There is a very interesting book on citizenship by Professor Anupma Roy. She's from JNU. So these are the books I would suggest one should read, definitely. Apart from some books which are talking about decolonizing social sciences, like Aditya Nigam has a book, Ahmed Dubey has another book. So these books are going to be in debate for next 10 years, I guess, because we are seeing a change in nature of social science also. At least there is a big demand now to change the nature of social sciences.
Thank you so much for being with us here today and giving us your valuable